So I'm going to just kind of give you a really brief rundown of making tacos. There is 1,000 different ways. Well, maybe not 1,000, but there's at least 100 different ways and different fillings. We're going to start with very basic, and we'll get a little bit more advanced as the year progresses. So we're going to be working on doing some empanadas, maybe some more traditional things that you're not as accustomed to in our class. But for this particular lab, let's start with just basic tacos. So we're going to look at cooking options and things. We've been working on mise en place in my class, and so it's very critical to make sure that everything is laid out and ready to go. I love this meal because you can make it very, very quickly. It's super great to do for a food lab for the students, and we can knock it out easily and not dirty up a whole bunch of dishes. So one of the first things I do when I mise en place for about every single thing, particularly if I'm using a cast iron skillet, is I put it on the stove. There's nothing in it, and I go ahead and turn the stove on. So I put it on like a low heat because I want to make sure that I preheat low and slow. So one of the keys to using cast iron that a lot of people don't really know is preheating that thing low and slow. That's really going to make a big difference in your seasoning and how well the bottom of your skillet stays nice and seasoned. So that's it, low and slow. No oil in it, nothing in it. We'll get to that later. The next thing I do for mise en place is I go ahead and kind of lay everything out. If I'm going to be cutting up vegetables or adding vegetables into something, then I need to have those cut before the food hits the pan. So for this particular photo here, I use mushrooms, poblano peppers, and onions. That's one of my favorite mixes for about anything. And then in this one, I'm also going to be adding in some black beans. And I used, in this case, store-bought blue corn tortillas. Now that I have a tortilla press, I like to make my own, like we're going to do in lab. But this time I used store-bought. So I sharpened up my knife. I made sure everything was cut up. I had some nice garden tomatoes. I had a little grippo powder. I had some salsa, some things laid out. I'm going to be making chicken for this particular recipe. I think for our lab, to start with, we're going to be using ground beef. To prep the store-bought shells, I do like them nice and crispy, so I go ahead and lay them out. I like to put the shredded cheese in the bottom, and that keeps the shells from breaking a little bit, and it keeps the juices from the food from soaking into the shells, which kind of help. So if I'm using store-bought shells, then I'll put a little shredded cheese in the bottom. For making my homemade shells, I either don't use cheese at all, and I just do them more traditional street taco style, or I use a cojita cheese, which is a little different, and I probably said that wrong, or I put the cheese on top. So this is for a store-bought that I'm going to cook in the oven, and it kind of breaks it down. I like chorizo the best. So even if I do chicken, which doesn't have a lot of its own flavor, then I almost always blend in chorizo. If you're going to do ground beef, or you could do just chorizo by itself. So chorizo is a sausage, and it has been flavored with spices. They have lots of different brands. I like the Johnsonville brand. They put this on sale a lot, and it's really cheap and inexpensive, and it's easy to make. So you need some kind of meat. Maybe. I like ground beef is not my favorite. I'm not a big fan of ground beef. So I use either like pork or chicken or chorizo. I'll use smoked pork if I have leftover carnitas, and I'll do that. Ground lamb is amazing. Sometimes we have ground deer, and ground deer makes really good tacos too. Vegetables, kind of optional. I like a sweet bell pepper or poblano. Poblanos are not quite as hot as jalapenos. They're very mild on the hot pepper side, but I like them a lot. Onions, corn, mushroom, as long as the vegetable's not too wet or add too much water. So if I'm doing burritos, I'll add more vegetables, but if I'm doing tacos, I usually do less. Beans, I like black beans. Black beans are sweet and mild. You don't have to use them. You could use refried beans, you could use white beans, pinto beans, or no beans altogether. So that's kind of an optional. You can do a starch, so you can add or make rice for a side. I hate rice, and so I personally don't make it, but you totally could. It's kind of traditional. And then for toppings, sour cream, cheese, guacamole, green verde salsa is really good. It's one of my favorites to have. Avocado is really amazing. There's a whole slew of things that you could do. When it comes to spices, if you're using a chorizo, then it may already have spices in it. But the common spices that you'll see in a package of taco mix would be cumin powder, chili powder, Red pepper powder, garlic or onion, oregano is also very common, even within the saison or the different seasoning blends. So when you buy a blend, it just has seasons blended in it. Sometimes there's saffron, there's adobe, there's chipotle, which is a smoked pepper. I like chipotle a lot. You'll see that we use these like little chipotles in a jar pretty often. I'll have those for our labs. I personally don't buy the pre-made mixes because sometimes they do have something I don't like. I do not like coriander. Coriander is common in some of those more taco-y mixes, and I don't care for that personally. So I like to make my own. And I think that it's important to kind of learn about each individual spice, and that way you can make your own blends. I get that a lot. Students ask, why don't we have such and such blend in the kitchen? I'm like, oh, let's make our own. You don't need to buy that. So for pan preparation, I want to make sure that I preheat it. When I can feel that it's really hot, then I'm going to add the oil. So your oil should glide across the pan. We've been working on that in our class. So preheat it with nothing. When the pan is hot, then you add the oil. Depending on what type of meat, depends on how much oil. In this case, I was making chicken, so I added more oil. If I'm using chorizo or if I'm using ground beef, I'll add little to no oil. So I put the chicken into the really hot oil. I do not use a lid. I might use a splatter screen to help keep the splat off, but no lid. I want the water and the moisture to escape so that I can get browning. Also, note, by cooking in this hot skillet and getting browning, I did not add my spices beforehand. This all comes down to cooking methods. If you want browning, caramelization, the Maillard reaction in the pan, which if we haven't learned that in class yet, we will get into that. That's essentially that golden brown seared crust. You can't put a bunch of spices on there. I have a really hot pan and they will burn in the pan. Now, if I were going to grill it or bake it or broil it, or if I have ground beef that I don't cook quite as hot, then yes, I would add my spices a little sooner. And I'm going to add all those spices to this chicken, just not at the beginning. I let it cook a little bit and brown before I add that spice in. And students like, oh, it cooks in. No, it doesn't. In the 5 minutes that this chicken is cooking in the skillet, your spices are not cooking inside of there. If you soaked it overnight and you marinated it and you did lime juice and all that kind of stuff, then that's a whole other thing. So about halfway through cooking, about the time I'm ready for flipping, then I'll add in my vegetables. This is poblano pepper. And onion and poblano pepper can cook a little longer. Bell pepper, though, will cook down fast, and I don't add it to the end. So I kind of brown and move it around. Then I add my spices, and then I add my beans. I like my beans in the pan. I like them to kind of cook in. So my filling ends up looking like this. I put it on my prepared taco shells, top it, and then I'm ready to go. For us, like I said, we're going to try to make our own homemade shells. I'll have some flour shells for this lab. If you have leftovers, a great thing to do is throw them in a crock and put some nice melty cheese on there, and then you have cheese dip. So I like to take my leftover taco fillings, and I just added about a fourth of a block of some queso cheese and a little splash of cream and microwave it, and makes an amazing cheese dip. So that is generally how I do the tacos, and we'll be doing it kind of similar to that in class. And I hope you guys enjoy this lab.